Going on YouTube? Let's discuss the top 10 mistakes of new sports card investors or collectors. No particular order. Number 10, research. One of the biggest mistakes new sports card investors make is not doing enough research before making investments or even collecting. It's important to understand the market, trends, and values of different cards to make informed decisions. There's plenty of resources out there like eBay, ComC, auction houses, etc. Don't get happy in the middle of the night on eBay, just clicking away on buy it now. You buy a bunch of cards. Look around and get the best deals you can. ComC is a plethora of cheap cards and singles, and we'll get into singles and boxes later on. Number 9, overpaying for cards. For sure, new investors or collectors may not have a good understanding of true value of a card, which can lead to overpaying for a card and hurting potential profits. In the beginning, I was buying retail and hobby boxes. Then after a while, I realized that I was just spending a lot of money for no reason, because the likelihood of you pulling a hit was a low percentage and you're just burning a lot of money. And I realized early on, just to stick to buying singles. If I want to break a box, fine, retail or go to my local hobby shops. I like to put money back into our local stores. A lot of people say, oh no, don't buy local because you spend a lot of money, go somewhere else. That's fine, but I still like to buy local. But if you want a penny pinch, for sure, go to Dave & Abs or one of those other online retailers where you can probably pay a lower cost. Like I said, the breaks are fun, but they're usually disappointing, and then you're kicking yourself of why you wasted money, and you're looking around like, now I have all these extra cards. What do I do with these cards? So it just wasn't in my best interest, and a lot of other collectors knock me. And if you don't have the money like these guys who are busting cases and cases, then don't do it. I recently went to a local card shop that I found I wasn't aware of, Lucky 7, bought a double patch Jalen Hurts numbered out of 50 for $50. I just sent it off to SGC, waiting on that to come back. Number 8, we have focusing too much on one player or team. While it's natural to have favorite players or teams, new investors or collectors may make the mistake of focusing too much on one specific player or team, which can limit their investment opportunities. I saw this a lot, especially when Luka came out or Zion. Everybody was focused on those two players, and there were so many other opportunities, right? Yes, Luka was hot and Zion was hot at the time, but now Luka is cooled off, but he's still doing well in the league. As Zion totally has fell off, will probably get traded or maybe out the league. He acts like he doesn't want to play. But just don't make that mistake that people have done time and time again on these hot players that come out. Right now, Shohei is hot. Should you buy Shohei? Of course, but don't focus only on Shohei. You may love a particular team, like I'm a big Steelers fan, but I'm not going to invest in Steelers. I'm going to invest in players or whatnot. They're going to make me money to flip, so that way I can put Steelers and stuff into my personal collection. So grade what's best opportunity to grade. Like, am I going to grade a Ben Roethlisberger rookie? Of course. Terry Bradshaw rookie? Of course. Terry Bradshaw for me, or Roberto Clemente, is an investment that I could pass down to my son. I'll probably never sell it myself, but when I pass on and it gets handed down to him, he may sell it, and it's a good investment. But some of my PC stuff, I would just send a grading like GMA or one of these lower, cheaper end companies, just to get stuff slabbed, not for investment purposes, but I just think some cars look cool and slabbed. Which is next, which leads us into ignoring condition in grading. The condition of a card is a critical factor in its value, and for new investors may not have a good understanding of how grading works or the importance of condition. I definitely made this mistake when I'm buying these lots, sometimes not realizing how poor a condition the cards are, or even online. ComC does a good job of being able to see multiple cars and seeing the condition. So when you're buying these lots or in the store or online or etc., make sure you're really looking at those conditions if you plan on investing this or trying to get this graded. Because newer cars and junk wax, they really better grade a 9 or a 10 to get your value back. While your vintage cards, the 50s and 60s, they're still getting a value at grades 6 or lower, but you definitely want to look at the condition. Unless you're just buying this as a collector and you have no intention of really reselling or flipping or making a profit, then fine, you get what you get. But if you want to make a profit, you'd have to look at that condition. So now it leads us into diversity. So number 6, putting all your investments into one type of card or player, definitely risky, and new investors should consider diversifying your portfolio or your collection as a collector. Don't limit yourself to just one grading company either, like a PSA. A lot of people think PSA is king, which typically it is, but also BGS and SGC definitely hold a strong value, especially with vintage cards. SGC does very well with vintage cards, and BGS and SGC do half grades as PSA does not. It's just a 1 through 10 scale. And again, if you're a collector of a certain team or player, that's fine if you're a collector, but if you're trying to be an investor, sometimes you have to put your love of a certain team, like for instance, I'm a big Steelers or Pittsburgh fan. I'm not looking at investing. I'll PC personal collection. I'll PC Steelers, but a lot of times my investment is not going to be in Steelers, right? I have to get out of the mind frame of a collector and who I like personally, and you have to get in the mind frame of an investor and think of, okay, long term, what am I going to need to hold? Let's go into number 5. Falling for counterfeit or altered cards. New investors may not have a good understanding of how to spot counterfeit or altered cards, which can result in investing in a fake card. I think today this is a little harder with the current era of cards compared to like junk whack or vintage. It'd be easier to fake a card. I'm not saying it's impossible, but definitely probably harder on newer cards. As a new collector investor, you may be unaware of broader promo cards, which most grading companies don't even grade or won't grade. I had a few come back as counterfeit. And they necessarily weren't counterfeit per se, but they weren't your license. I guess a lot of those you would say unlicensed cards. So be careful of those too. They're definitely cool. I have a bunch of broader cards or promo cards I recently gotten a lot for Ken Griffey Jr. and Bo Jackson, so they're definitely cool for a collection. And sometimes raw those will sell, but for grading, SGC definitely kicked mine back. I had some broader cards for Bo Jackson and kicked it back as a counterfeit. So be careful of those, which those necessarily aren't quote unquote fake cards. Fake would definitely be where they're taking, like, let's say an 87 Bo Jackson and they're altering it, or some of those vintage cars, they'll trim them to try to get them centered, right? So be careful of that. So number 4, selling too early. I've definitely been seeing this for new investors, maybe tempted to sell cars too early in hopes of making a quick profit, which can result on missing out on potential long-term gains. If you're flipping graded cars already, this definitely seems to happen a lot more where people get antsy or the market gets hot or they don't realize it's cooling down. They buy a car and they want to make their money back real quick. You may just have to hold on to it to get that long-term profit or goal. Or even if you buy a car now, let's say a new person or a rookie, right? Hold on to it. As with like a Mike Trout, he's at the end of his career. Even still, you may even want to wait until after Mike Trout retires. I have a card right now I have listed pretty high. I don't necessarily want to lower that price just because I know he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So, as compared to like a raw card, if you're buying that raw single at a decent price, then you can definitely turn around, get it graded, and flip it. Or again, you can hold it depending on who it is. So, definitely difference there with graded and raw cards when you're doing this flipping. Going to number 3, not factoring fees and costs. So you're buying these cards, but you need to realize when you flip them or resell them, especially if you're doing on eBay or ComC, there's going to be fees and costs associated with buying, selling, and grading the cards that can add up quickly and dip into your profit margin, right? So if you're selling on eBay, fees right now are like 13.25%. for cards, then if you're shipping a card, if it's graded, it's going to cost you at least probably $4.25 to ship that card. If it's raw, yeah, they have that new thing where you can ship at I think 80 cents to $1.08, which I haven't done that now. I've just been doing first class. And then you're grading. So if you grade through like an SGC, you're going to pay $24 a card if you're grading less than 10 cards. So remember, again, this goes back into, like I said earlier, well, what we're going to get into is tracking. And then number two, don't just follow the hype without understanding the market. So new investors or even collectors may follow the hype around a certain player or card without understanding the market and demand, leading to poor investment decisions. Some players take longer than others to come to fruition, if they even do at all. For instance, hype around a minor league baseball player, like let's say a Wander Franco. He was sitting in the minors for years and finally made it to the pros. Prospecting is fun, but it can be tricky as well. So, Wander Franco is still to be determined where he sits. Right now we have a Julio Rodriguez, right? Just like if you're prospecting college quarterbacks, and then they come to the league, the NFL, and become a bust in a few years. Let's look at like a Jamarcus Russell, for example. His cards were probably selling, or even a Baker Mayfield, even recently, right? Or Johnny Manziel, where those cards right out the gate, yeah, they were on fire, but now you can't give those cards away. So you also have to kind of, I won't say you have to have good predictions, I guess, but also kind of see the future with people. Like if you get a card, this goes back to our other not selling too quick. Well, in some instances, it's better to get rid of that card sooner than later, like Alonzo Ball. He may be able to come back, but I don't know. And lastly, number one, not having a plan at all. New investors may not have a clear investment plan, leading to impulse decisions and missed opportunities. It's important to set goals and strategies for investing in sports cards. So definitely keeping track of what are you buying and what are you selling so you can see where your money is going. This will allow you to track your profits and losses as well. I'm still old school. I like to use Excel, but I would like to get into more modern technology with some sort of app or site like a Collects or a Car Dealer Pro or Market Movers, etc. So I can see the trending. For me, it's more so now seeing the trending, right? If I bought a said card for $1, I get it graded for 24. Or if I bought a graded card, I can see where I bought it for, evaluate my profits, and also see how the trending is going over the last year, two, three, etc. Or especially for like junk wax or vintage over many years, the trending, which may give me a better visual of when to sell. But either way, definitely having a plan. So again, this is just kind of a quick top 10 mistakes of new sports card and for investors and collectors. I've been in and out of the hobby myself since '87, but got back into the hobby recently. I think it's like 2019, 2020, getting back into the hobby. So it's definitely changed over the years, right? But also as far as most of the stuff, I've made these mistakes myself and just kind of wanted to point it out and hopefully give some input or direction for new collectors who want to either get into the hobby as a collector or get into the hobby as an investor flipper. I mean, there's plenty of cars to go around, and some people can't stand these, investors or flippers or whatever have you. But there's tons of cards, there's plenty to go around. So enjoy the hobby, whether you're a collector. I collect and I quote unquote invest. I like to grade cards and flip them, and I have my PC of Ken Griffey Jr. and Pittsburgh Pirates and Steelers and etc. So just enjoy the hobby, guys. I hope this helps some of y'all, and like, comment, subscribe, and give me your feedback. JJ out.